Welcome into the Inside Indiana show. I'm Editor-in-Chief Ken Bikoff, along with publisher Ed Magoni. And the Hoosiers fall to 1-8 last week after dropping a pretty bad game, Ed, to Northwestern. They lose 59-38. Defense put up almost no resistance whatsoever for most of the game. 660 yards, I think, of offense. Or I'm sorry, 600 plus at the very least.
616.
616, and for a defense that had given up 59 points 2 weeks earlier, this is a trend that is worse than we've seen in a long time. And that Northwestern game also was just a situation where the Hoosiers played as bad as I've seen them play in a while.
Yeah, on a defensive side of the ball, definitely. There's no question. They only forced one Northwestern punt. They allowed Northwestern to run out the clock essentially in the fourth quarter by possessing the ball for over 9 minutes on one drive. I mean, basically Northwestern, if they wanted to throw the ball, they were able to throw it. And if they wanted to run it, they were able to run it. And IU couldn't get them off the field on third down. They couldn't get them to force any turnovers. I mean, it was a real bludgeoning.
Yeah, and it was also disturbing, too, because this is a Northwestern team that hasn't exactly been tearing things up. I mean, I think they had lost 4 or 5 straight coming into the game, and Indiana has played Northwestern tough in recent years, and yet here they were at home, homecoming weekend, and it was a mess almost right from the start.
Yeah, I mean, after Trey Roberson took the offense down the field to score, you kind of thought, okay, maybe the defense come out and get a 3-and-out. No chance. Northwestern came right back down the field, scored, and then came right back on the field again, and right back on the field again, over and over again. They couldn't find anyone who could cover Drake Dunsmore, who ended up catching 4 touchdown passes, which was a Northwestern record. It's just they just had no answer for Northwestern's offense in the passing game or in the rushing game.
So for the defense, is this a matter of talent or coaching, or where do you think the biggest problem is?
Well, you have to say it's at least partially due to the talent. But the other thing is they have a lot of youth out there. I know that sounds like the coaches keep saying youth, but it's true. I mean, it's not a false. Jeff Thomas was out this week. They've lost 2 of their senior safeties. But the bottom line is they just need to improve their overall team speed, and and the kids need to get some experience in the system and understand and recognize if they're playing a zone or if they're playing man or what the situation is, because basically when these guys cross when the receivers run across through 2 zones, they just don't know who's supposed to pick them up, and then he ends up wide open. So that's a real problem.
Trey Roberson has played well, I think, in his short time. Stephen Houston has come together. That offensive line is starting to hold its own. Even though Northwestern's defense hasn't been great, they're still holding their own. They did the same thing against Iowa the week before. And the offensive side of the ball seems to be coming around. But on defense, for all those young guys, I mean, the coaching staff talks about communication being an issue. I would hope that that's the only case, because otherwise you have guys out there who have played football. They've been recruited to a Big Ten program, and yet they're out there and blowing coverages, making mistakes that really they shouldn't be making at this point in the season. Now, in all fairness, again, these are true freshmen. A lot of them true freshmen or redshirt freshmen without a lot of playing time. But the Hoosiers also don't have a lot of experience that they could lean on right now.
Right, I think that's a big part of the problem. I mean, the whole secondary is basically freshmen or sophomores with Greg Heben, and other than that, I mean, the linebacking core has been banged up. The defensive line has been consistently healthy, but they've kind of underproduced based on the expectations of that unit, which is kind of disappointing, because if you're strung up in the front 4, then maybe it takes a little bit of pressure off your secondary and your second line of linebackers, but they just don't have an answer for anyone's offense right now. It doesn't matter who they're going against.
Yeah, and that's the thing. As good as the offense looked last week, until Indiana plays defense, it's not going to make a lick of difference when it comes to beating anybody. Now, the Hoosiers did take a hit offensively this past week when senior wide receiver DeMarlo Belcher was dismissed from the team for a violation of team rules. Belcher finishes his career 2 receptions short of Indiana's career receptions record. But more importantly, Ed, he's only played 6 games this year, still is Indiana's leading receiver this year, and yet it doesn't feel like Belcher's going to be missed.
No, I think they've been spreading the ball around pretty effectively, especially since Trey Roberson took over. I mean, he's not locking on to any one guy. I think a couple of games they've had like 9 guys catch passes, which is very good to see a freshman quarterback spreading the ball around so much, not zeroing in on one guy. He's going to the guy who's open, and that's what you want him to do. But Belcher has missed so much playing time this season that they've found ways to cope without him. I think the bigger loss is actually Deweese Wilson going down with his ACL, the knee injury, and losing him for the season. I mean, he was actually more as productive, maybe not in catch-wise, number of catches, but certainly from an offensive standpoint, he was the deep threat that they relied on for the most part. He could go up and grab the ball. He made a great catch in the end zone against Northwestern in the tight coverage. And, I'm actually more disappointed not to be able to see Deweese play the rest of the season than DeMarlo.
Well, especially since he blew out his knee on that touchdown catch, too. That really hurts. But, I think it's interesting, too, with the way the Belcher situation has been handled. Since taking over the program, plenty of players have left the program under Kevin Wilson. They haven't wanted to really, I guess, work as hard or haven't wanted to play for him, have had medical issues, have had other issues that they've dealt with. But Belcher in particular was a player that the Hoosier coaching staff really viewed as somebody who could be a leader. But with the dismissal, Kevin Wilson made it clear that there is nobody who's above the rules.
Moving forward, we had a suspension the other day with DeMarlo Belcher, but that has in fact turned out that's going to be a dismissal for the team. You guys saw that yesterday. I'm not going to go into great details other than no issue other than our seniors and I back in preseason went through the rules we wanted. The seniors actually amended and gave me some ideas of things they wanted, things we wanted to do, and all the players are aware of that, signed off on that. We go through that during the year, and unfortunately, just with some things that happened, it got to a point, and even our first meeting, very first meeting, I've said this to you guys a couple times, the best players and the seniors are held to the highest standards, whether it be on the field, off the field, performance, practice habits, just doing things right. So there's not, we don't have sacred cows, no individuals above anything, and so it's unfortunate that this has happened to what I think is a good kid and potentially a good player, but at the same time, just by following our guidelines, just didn't do things that needed to do in some situations, and it's led to dismissal, and that's kind of it with that.
Now, of course, the Hoosiers losing that another senior leader, but mentally, where is this team, Ed, right now after a month of just getting bludgeoned by different Big Ten opponents?
Well, I think the offense has to be a little bit optimistic. I mean, since Trey Roberson came in and Stephen Houston's been being very productive, the offensive line's blocking better in pass game and the run game. I think there's a lot to be positive about the offense, but the defense just is abysmal right now. I mean, Mike Eckler looked like he was ready to, jump off the top of Memorial Stadium when we saw him in the press conferences this week. So, it's you kind of feel bad for that guy and all the guys, but at the same time, you have to figure out a way to slow down these offenses, and they just aren't able to do it right now. So mentally, they could really, really use a win, but whether or not they're going to be able to get one with the defense playing the way it's playing, I just don't know.
Well, it's going to be especially tough against this week's opponent, a team that Indiana hasn't had a lot of success with in its history. That's a problem, and when we come back, we'll take a look at IU's next opponent, the Ohio State Buckeyes.
What's up, worker? How's it going? What's up, buddy? Doing good? Come on, let me in!
Want to get inside Indiana? Call 800-282-GO-IU today to get the best in-depth coverage you'll find anywhere on the Indiana Hoosiers. You'll get 12 full-color glossy issues packed with the Hoosier news you crave, plus our exclusive online express edition featuring game previews, reviews, and much, much more, all for just $49.95. Inside Indiana. You can't get closer to IU athletics without a scholarship.
Somebody in there! Let me in! Please!